The COYGIG Pod on Off the Ball in association with Cadbury, official snack partner of the Republic of Ireland women's national team.
Katie McCabe, a huge goal.
I'm very proud of the team's performance.
We're going to go out there to beat them. We're going to try and beat them.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the COYGIG podcast. Now, at this stage, I would expect that you have all seen... I can only laugh. The news about the group that Ireland have been drawn into for their European qualifiers for Euro 2025. Group C with a beautiful list of France, England, Sweden and Ireland. 3 of the 4 semi-finalists of the last European Championship. Top places, top ranked, topped everything, and little old us in there in between. But before we get diving into things with Karen Duggan, we have to say we only have one person to blame for this group that we've been drawn into. Have a listen to this.
I want to get England. I'll say it that I want England. I want them in the group. They'd never play us when I was playing. They were afraid to play us. I'd actually love to get them.
Well, there you have it, folks. We can only blame the one and only Emma Byrne, who will be on the coaching ticket for these games. And Karen, I don't know what your reaction was when you saw these fixtures. Mine was big yikes. And it seems to be, from my Twitter response to posting about the group, everyone else is feeling a little bit like that too.
Yeah, I burst out laughing, to be honest, because you could just see it coming, and the face on the woman as she pulled out Ireland's name, it was so apologetic because it was building up to be the group of death as it was. And then there we were. It was always going to happen. But yeah, I just burst out laughing because if you don't laugh, you cry.
Yeah, when it got past Group B, it just almost felt written in the stars that it would be a 50-50 chance that we'd get a group I actually think we would have fared okay in, or the worst group of the entire thing. And of course, well, arguably it could have been worse. I think if you swapped out France for Spain, then it definitely would have been exactly the group I said last week that I did not want. So maybe I am to blame for jinxing us just as much.
No, we'll stick with Emma. She's gone now. We'll blame her.
Yeah, I had to compliment her the other day, so this makes up for it all. If anyone has missed all the other groups and wasn't paying attention to them because you were too busy being devastated by our own, in Group A we have Netherlands, Italy, Norway, Finland. Group B, Spain, Denmark, Belgium, Czech Republic, and then Group D, Germany, Austria, Iceland, Poland. I mean, in some ways, it could be a really interesting qualification process for us. We have faced Sweden before. We kind of know that we can get at them if we want. They probably play a style of football that we know we can compete against if we're playing at our top level. France and England, we played France up in those friendlies before the World Cup. They did beat us. I'm trying to find some positives here, but we know
That's
what we're going.
That's a polite word of what they did to us.
Yeah, we know what we're going up against.
Yeah,
and then England, we're all going to have a great day out, hopefully. And
we're going to have a great
or Wembley,
day.
Or maybe both.
I think it'll be both. I do think it will be both. So, I mean, look at you looking for the positives there. Glass half full, Kathleen.
I know, I have to go for something because I felt a bit sick going into this recording, even thinking about it.
Yeah, look, I to be honest, I always kind of felt like going into League A, there was going to be some difficult matches ahead of us. We didn't think that they would be as difficult. But if we're being realistic, our sight was always on the playoff, which is absolutely where it is now. There's not even a realm of possibility, if we're being honest about it, barring some sort of miracle.
No, so for everyone listening at home, to qualify out of this group, we would have had to have finished within the top 2. But we are still guaranteed that playoff place, which will give us a much better opportunity of going to the Euros. It'd be a minor miracle if we qualified in the top 2 of that group. Every time I look at it, I get a bit of a fright down here on my page. Just some of the reaction from some of our listeners who are also...
They're so funny.
Oh, they're so hilarious. So... Leanne Dick, she actually had quite a nice response. She said, group of death, but I'm sure the girls in green will give it their best shot. Amy Kane, which I think is how everyone felt when they saw it first. Reb said, this is a targeted attack on the nation of Ireland in the mouth of St. Patrick's Day. Lots of group of death comments. Good Lord, said Sully my name. Rising down, what did we do to deserve this? The balls are rigged. Lots of tweets I can't read out as well because there's many curse words going on. Oh, this is something from Dolly. RIP, that's all from Jackie Wan. So I think there's a general...
They kind of reflect what's going on in my WhatsApp groups at the moment as well. There's a lot of that, mostly coming from me, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of reaction that's all similar. A couple of optimistic ones in there as well, saying, you know, it's opposition like this that means we'll get to have some good days at the Aviva. At least we'll be able to test ourselves against some of the best.
Couldn't have better preparation for our
the girls on the ball derby too. So Rachel Sullivan, who is friend of the podcast, was texting me earlier saying she also is
depending on the results, we might be able to poach Rachel.
Yeah, she can come over to us for a little bit, and Sophie can keep going with all the England stuff. Karen, in terms of the players looking at this group right now, what are they saying to themselves, and what do you think is being said in their WhatsApp groups? Because we can sit here and say it's a group of death and we just need to focus on the playoffs and all that, but they also still need to go and play these games and at the very least put up a performance where we're not walking away totally wounded animals.
Yeah, I think what we did in the World Cup qualifiers and how we applied ourselves in the World Cup and how we set up defensively, we will go back to that so the girls won't be nervous about the style of play that they're going to have to employ in these games. And in a way, the pressure is off them because there's absolutely no expectations going into these games, and it is the best possible preparation they can have for their qualifier, which was always going to 99% going to be the case of what was to come. We saw how we fared in League B coming off the back of all those really, really tough games. We absolutely, we walked it really, if we're being honest. We had a tough game against Wales. I think it'll be a bit of a wake-up call about where we are and what we need to do. But League A for now is just time to develop and get us ready for that playoff. So I actually don't think they'll be, like, obviously they would have preferred an easier group, and you'd think, okay, we'll get the home crowd going and stuff like that, and we might nick a few results. But I think the fact that the pressure is off and the expectations, which we're getting a little bit out of hand, I think, have been tempered now. So I don't think it'll be too bad.
Do you
After
think
the initial kind of sugar.
Oh dear. Do you think the pressure and expectation is come off now? I know anyone who has followed this team regularly will say, and we've seen that from the reaction that there has been today, but there was, I suppose, that cohort that joined during the World Cup who maybe had certain expectations for the team that were a little bit higher than people who followed the team closely knew maybe not to be the case.
Yeah, and it's something we absolutely want to get away from as part of our development, but we still do thrive as the underdog, you know. We did better in the Italy game, in the recent friendly, than we did in the Wales game because we were, you know, we had higher expectations than what we should have potentially going into that Wales game. We thought we would go and dominate possession and win that game easily, and quite the opposite happened. So while it's not what we want in terms of development, I think we will fare quite well in that regard.
Hopefully. Anyways, that's all
that's all we could say. I mean, again, it will be back to basics, back to our bread and butter, the defensive side of things. And everyone's saying, oh, it'd be great to bring them to the Aviva. I'd love to bring them to the boggiest pitch in the back of the arms out west somewhere. But
I
for the game, I think it will be, Kathleen, you've contacts out there. Come on. But again, it's something to be excited about. I'm really excited about the crowd that could potentially be brought in for an England fixture. So we'll look at the positives. We'll be there.
We will be there. You'll be in your nice, shiny studio, and I'll be probably somewhere getting rained on, but we will be there all the time. No, yeah. I actually do agree with you. I do think this is the sort of hype and excitement that the team deserves to have around them, with these big teams coming to town, with the asterisks that hopefully we can put on the sort of performance that we put on arguably for a majority of the World Cup games, and also the game against Italy, where yes, we're maybe not getting the results that we want, but we're not totally shaming ourselves either. Just for people's general information, so Eileen Gleeson is speaking to the media around about now, so we'll be hearing a little bit more from her throughout the day. If you tune into Off the Ball and keep an eye on the social channels, you'll see all the information from her there. In terms of the qualifying campaign, so it will start in April, and then there are further qualifiers in May, June and July, and then onto the playoffs after that. We won't know the fixtures just yet. I'm not totally sure what the timeline is for that. It could be later today or it could be later on in the week. The FAI hadn't actually given out any solid information about that, but it should be interesting. Hopefully we'll get some big days out at the Aviva, and at the very least this is an opportunity to test ourselves against the best. And also I'm here to console you all through the COYGIG Twitter account for the rest of the day if needs be, and hopefully this podcast will help you slightly as well. Karen, I was thinking it's probably these qualifiers off the back of the weekend you had, it's probably not what you need at all.
No, I told you, it gave me a laugh. It gave me a pick-me-up that we needed. Yeah. So for people who don't know, the President's Cup was on at the weekend. So winners of the Cup against winners of the league. And Athlone came out very deserving, 3-0 winners. It was reflective of how the game went. And, you know, like the Wales game might be a wake-up call for Ireland and where the levels they are at and items for improvement. We're kind of hoping the same with Peamount. Again, if people don't follow it, they would kind of be like, oh my God, what's going on? But we punched above our weight last year, and now we know we need to improve because teams will have, you know, gone up levels and levels, and it's up to us to try and to match them at least and do what we can. But yeah, it was a bad day at the office, and I absolutely hate losing. And if anyone has any good news, good nice memes, please send them my way because they're much needed today.
When the game ended, I texted Catherine, our producer, and Emma, who does our team of the week, and I was like, I don't know if I want to ask poor Karen about this on Monday or Tuesday, whenever we record the podcast. I feel too bad. It's not fair, but I do think it's
like when people were saying, "Oh, isn't it a good thing that we got beaten by Wales now because we'll learn from it?" I don't think it's ever a good thing to be beaten, but like you clutch at those like little straws to keep yourself afloat, and that's where I'm at the moment.
We'll let you have it.
But no, look, we've had a bit of a disjointed preseason and stuff, injuries, illnesses, all the rest of it. But league starts this week, so it's sink or swim. So it's up to us to just step up now, to be honest.
Right. Straight into it. And to be fair, it was maybe a slightly flattering scoreline for Athlone in that it did take them until late on to get those goals. It's not that it was a case of, you know, they were scoring a couple of goals throughout the game. You did hold them off. I think it was 77th minute was the first goal. And
Athlone are a very good side as well. Very well coached, really, really balanced. I think they'll do very, very well in the league this year. A lot of really, just a very balanced team. And I have a lot of respect for them and what they've done over the last few years and what Kieran Kilduff is doing with them. And yeah, we held out for a good while. We ran out of steam a little bit, which again is something we'll need to address. But it was coming. I feel like we couldn't have been too disappointed with the concession of the goals because it had been coming for a while. So one of those days where you hope that as many of us won't all play poorly at the same time again. You know, you can have one or two have off days, maybe not 7 or 8. So again, inward reflection and all that kind of stuff. But look, we're not going to get too doom and gloom about it. We had a fantastic year last year. Everyone is stepping up. The standards are getting higher and higher. Some teams have signed really well. I think there will be differences in where you see teams positioned this year to last year, 100% on that. And yeah, it's just interesting to see the development of the league. Some of the preseason results have been interesting. Obviously, Treaty seem to have a brand new team, brand new offerings that they have. So it'll be interesting to see the impact that they can make straight away. Athlone have a lot to offer as well in terms of what they can give players. Shells are the same. It's hard for other teams to compete with that, but it's what's going to drive the league on as well. So as much as it doesn't bode well for someone like me, it's good for the league, I think, at the moment. I think.
Well, it adds an interesting storyline into it at the very start. And as you said, it puts you guys in a position where automatically, on top of being league winners, you have something to prove after that game. I chatted to Tommy Hewitt a couple of weeks ago at the launch for the league, and he said that he thought that Athlone could possibly go and win the title this year. He said he thought it was the closest they had been to doing so. So I wasn't mad surprised. I was surprised at the scoreline, but I wasn't mad surprised that they had turned up, I suppose, in the way that they did. And then there has been so much movement around the league in terms of players. It's actually really hard to know from an outside perspective, having not seen pre-season, how teams are going to show up and how they're going to perform. So I think it's a good way
It's interesting to see how they'll gel, but on paper you'd look at the Shelburne team and be like, wow, they're absolutely stacked. And I would think kind of similarly now to Athlone. Obviously they lost Dana Sheriff, but they've recruited really well, a couple of girls from the Northern League and stuff. So, and obviously they've set out a marker now straight away in the President's Cup, and they won the FAI Cup last year. So there's certainly two names, if you are involved in it, they're two names who are been spoken about an awful lot as, you know, the title contenders again. It's not to say that we won't,
considering
because
Sligo are playing Shelburne first off the bat.
well, we have them second, so it's going to be good crack. But no, we can't go in with fear and stuff. We obviously have a lot of pride in what we've done last year, but also who we are as a club, as a women's flagship team and stuff like that. So we're not going to go away with a whimper by any means, because we still have a hugely talented squad. It's just up to us now to step up.
So you guys travel down to Cork for your opening game. That's on Saturday at 5 o'clock. And then, as I said, Shelburne taking on Sligo, DLR are taking on Shamrock Rovers, Wexford are at home to Bows, and Athlone have Galway. And
that'll be an interesting game as well, because towards the end of last season, Galway were really starting to click. They're another really, really well-trained young team, go out and play with no fear. So as good as Athlone are, Galway could be a little bit of a surprise package as well, I think.
Could be a bit of a slipping one for them. Well, if you want to hear more about the league, we are actually going to be doing a very special league preview with none other than Miss Karen Duggan and also Scarlett Heron from Shamrock Rovers on Friday on Off the Ball breakfast during our International Women's Day takeover. So keep a listen out for that, and we will dive into all that sort of stuff a little bit more. But for now, we are going to get Emma Carroll to join us. She actually just had to take those 15 minutes to compose herself there because she was so upset over the draw. But she is back with her team of the week, so we will bring you that now. So now we are joined by Emma Carroll for her latest WSL team of the week. Emma, before we get launched into that, I do have to ask you how you feel about the draw, because it kind of is the only news in town today.
Yeah, we could have got Spain as well. So I suppose, you know, we'll
clutching at straws. That's what we're doing today, people.
This podcast is brought to you by Delusion.
Yeah, it's probably like other than getting Spain, it's probably one of the toughest draws. So
we're used to it, though. We got that at the World Cup as well.
We like being the underdog. It's fine. I'm looking forward to Katie McCabe up against Beth Mead and Dia Viva.
That will be fun. I am looking forward to seeing her up against all those English players, because I feel like she'll have a different mentality, not a different mentality, but an extra hard mentality about making sure that we perform against them to the best way that we can, so that she's not going back into that Arsenal dressing room and getting a ribbing, or even worse, not getting teased. I think that's worse in those situations where people actually feel bad for you, so they don't say anything. But we'll see. It's all, as Karen said, podcast brought to you by Delusion. We could go and actually win some of these games. Who knows? We'll have a party if that happens.
Absolute banger in Wembley. I'm here for it.
I would take that, to be fair. If that's the best we get out of this, that's pretty good in my books. And the men have to face the Englishmen in Wembley as well. So it's going to be a big year for the Ireland-England rivalry in football, I feel. Emma, do you want to take us through the team of the week so we can distract ourselves with thoughts of happy things? I see some Irish representation in here.
Yeah, there could have been more. I was almost putting Courtney Brosnan in goal, but I went with Rachel Laws. Went with the Liverpool boys over the Irish boys this week. At the back, Kai Visto, Wubamwai. Ireland's Mount Rushmore member, Niamh Fahey, Pauline Bremer, making up the back four. Then we've got Kim Little, Nagano, Park in the middle, and Beth Mead, Thurland, and Hemp up front.
It's a good team. It's a good team. Jess Park was very impressive. Watched City Everton on a very nice big screen on Sunday. I was staying with some family who had a very nice TV, and you just see so much more compared to watching it on my laptop or grainy footage. Karen, who would you pick out in that team, or what did you think of it?
Yeah, it is. It's a very good team. I always kind of look at who you pop in centre mid, because sometimes you sneak an attacker in there. But the return of Kim Little, obviously, favourite player, put her in every week, don't care. But Nagano for Liverpool as well. She just picked up really, really nice pockets and caused all sorts of issues for them. Yeah, Thurland for Brighton. I mean, she's been standing out really for them, hasn't she? She's been the kind of player that you'd wonder, will they be able to keep hold of her because of how instrumental she's been for them. You did go for Liverpool bias in goal. The only person I would potentially query is I'd maybe put Hannah Hampton in, because in a week where it was really looking at it and her ability with her feet compared to a lot of the other goalkeepers, I do think that's why Chelsea have gone for her. You know, I think it adds so much to a team when you do have that. So she would probably pop in there for me, but also kind of boring just putting Chelsea players in, isn't it, when they're that good? But
the Hannah Hampton one is interesting though, because she kind of got, you know, cast aside from the England squad, and now like she's not, I don't think she's going to get in ahead of Mary Earps, but Earps hasn't been at her greatest recently, and Hampton is really stepping up at Chelsea. So it's they're stacked anyway, because Keaton has been having an incredible season as well. At City, so
definitely a conversation there anyway, I'd say, and something that will be looked at. I probably would have popped Ramirez in as well, just because
scary.
She's so scary. And I'd be
I love
afraid
that
not
laugh
to
from
put her
Emma.
in.
It was pure nerves. So she was standing at the door staring at her like, I'm going to score a goal against you right
the
now.
way that she can just,
oh my god,
the way she can just cast defenders aside as if they're not there, like they're properly trying to drag out of her and give everything, like they're trying to foul her, and she's so honest and so strong that she doesn't really care. She's just like, oop, boop, see you later, and she's gone. So it's just the way she won back her goal and made it for herself, and then how composed she was in her finish for her first WSL goal. It was like, this is the start of something again for them, I think, with Ramirez up top. Wubin Moy, it's good to see her in, because she does get overshadowed a little bit by a lot of the other Arsenal defenders and stuff at times, and has come in for some criticism over the years, but I think she's shown good resilience and did really well there.
She's the one who over the last couple of months has really shown her determination to become better. Even from a England context, she got that goal during their international friendlies, but she cemented her position in that team a lot more than I think people probably expected her to. At Arsenal, a lot of the time she was in, it felt like she was playing even when maybe she wasn't doing too well, because of the injury crisis there was at the team and for the need of having a regular starter in there. Whereas now it's just unquestionable that she'd be in there.
Yeah, totally agree. So overall, I think the team was pretty good. Obviously, Beth Mead was instrumental in that Arsenal goal, the combination with her and Little before Russo put it in, and just how she's equipped herself since coming back from injury. She's still the player that she was before, which is a huge testament to her to come back and mentally be able to put in the performances she is. Shout out for once removed friend of the pod, Vicky Losada, who got an assist and a goal as well for Brighton in, one of those bottom of the table, the most chaotic game that we've seen in a very, very long time. So, I mean, West Ham United game, hard to pick out players because it was evenly matched, I guess. But no, I think it's a very, very good team. City are still very good, and Lauren Hemp is showing up for them as they needed her to. So yeah. Well done, Emma.
Thanks.
Is there
the table is also looking nice. There was like a little while there on Sunday where, I was kind of going, Manchester City are getting beaten in the Premier League, and then Liverpool were sitting fourth in the WSL above Manchester United. It was all going so well for about half an hour. It's still looking good though.
We do enjoy those half an hours of, as this podcast is run by Delusion, where you can pretend to yourself that Arsenal have just beaten Sheffield United 6-0 in the Premier League. Of course they're going to win the whole thing. Liverpool and City totally don't have better squads overall than them. Arsenal 3 points behind City and Chelsea in the WSL. They'll win the whole thing. It'll be fine. Was there any thought of an honourable mention to Kat Macario coming back after over 600 days out and getting a goal on her ACL?
What a return. And you could just see, like, even the fact when she was coming on, the smiles from all the teammates, because obviously she's like first appearance for Chelsea, but she's obviously been in and around the squad for so long, so she must be a good enough character that they've all kind of taken to her, and we're very pleased for her without her having stepped foot on the pitch. And then she goes and scores, and like Twitter just
I felt
crazy,
emotional.
like.
I could see the tears in her eyes, and I could feel my own eyes going. I was like, this is just too much.
Yeah, it was lovely. I love
goal as well.
Yeah, and I love the way Emma Hayes spoke about her after basically being like, she is world class, and I'm leaving you with a world class player, and kind of getting the fans to be like, back this girl, because there's good things to come. And I think, the way that her teammates celebrated with it was just one of those moments, wasn't it, that you love to see especially when there's just so much talk about the negative side and the injuries and all that. But when you come back and it shows how hard you've worked, it's good to see. But again, Chelsea, we thought they'd have, they had one slip up and we were like, oh, there's a chance. But again, is there? Is there a chance? No, there is. City are on form.
Yeah.
They are, and Gareth Taylor just getting a new contract this week as well kind of proves how well they are performing. Emma, is there any last points you would like to make about your team?
About my team? No, just Kim Little is just class. And she could be in there for the rest of the season if she keeps
breaking news, folks. Never heard this on the podcast
before. On the Gareth Taylor thing, though, I don't think you would have predicted a contract that big at the start of last season coming his way.
Definitely.
And I know we raised a few eyebrows when Adevelle got such a big contract as well, but obviously what Gareth Taylor is doing is big. And you saw the signings he made during the summer as well, a lot of young girls. So there does seem to be a plan in place there. And if they keep going on the trajectory they are going, it'd be hard to bet against Man City going back to being the top team in the WSL.
Definitely a very different landscape for Man City this season. Still in WSL race, quarterfinals FA Cup, semi-finals of League Cup. This is their 12th win in all competitions at the weekend. You have someone like Bunny Shaw scoring her 15th goal. There's consistency in the selection. There's consistency in general with just not as many injuries as maybe some of the likes of Chelsea or Arsenal have experienced. So
that's the big word. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Consistency. That's what they just didn't have at the start of the last couple of seasons, and it bit them in the arse. But they're flying it. And really good to watch.
Maybe football isn't all that fickle a game at all. You just give someone a bit of time and hey presto, you have a nearly WSL
There's no fun in that though.
This is also true. Emma, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now Karen and I are going to dive into some WSL action. Now we are going to turn our attention to the actual games. But just before we do that, I see Denise O'Sullivan is here tweeting about the results. We wanted to be here. Now we are. Let's have it. So fight and talk from the Irish girls, which is exactly what we want to see and exactly what we expected as well. Karen, it was an interesting weekend at WSL action. We already mentioned that absolutely massive score between Brighton and Bristol, where Brighton beat them 7-3. But I suppose it might be kind of interesting to start with City since we finished off with them in the team of the week. They had a 2-1 win over Everton. Arguably should have been a lot more. I think Everton put in a good performance, but City had a lot of chances that they scuppered. That first goal was an absolutely horrendous mistake that I think no player would ever want to make. But Bunny Shaw arguably could have scored a couple of more goals. She had a bit of an Erling Haaland moment when it came to missing right in front of goal.
Yeah, she did, but you'd forgive her given how instrumental she's been and, you know, the turn of form that Man City are in and the amount of goals that she's been racking up for them. She yeah, you can say she didn't have her best game, but she still was the person who was alert to that mistake by Everton at the back. And yeah, you can say, if that hadn't happened, would Everton have, kicked on and maybe got something from the game? But I don't think so. I think the amount of possession that Man City had, and obviously Courtney Brosnan made that fantastic save that was going in top corner from Coombs. And yeah, just a very, very good team. Like, they're just the way they can keep the ball and run teams ragged. And then you've got someone like Hemp who can take a shot from 25 yards and ping it in bottom corner. Yeah, deserved 2-1 win. And like I say, it probably could have been more.
Is there an argument that Courtney should have got down quicker for that Hemp goal? That technically there wasn't a massive amount of speed on it, but there was a lot of bodies in front of her, so that may have delayed her reaction time. Yeah,
I think she will be disappointed because of the standards she holds herself to. But if they hadn't scored that one, I think that they would have scored eventually again anyway. But as well as that, like, you think of the saves, okay, she maybe should have been booked for that handball outside the box, but if she hadn't come and gotten that touch there, that was another potential goal. Like I already mentioned, the world-class one, top corner from Coombs. So yeah, she'll be a little bit disappointed in that, but the more I see her, the more I'm just like, God, we actually have a world-class keeper on our hands, and it's the worst position in the world that we're even analysing that maybe she could have gotten down a bit quicker to it. But I wouldn't pick her out as a negative from Everton. I wouldn't actually pick too much out from Everton, because we know what level they're at, and it was a very respectable scoreline, and I think their manager knew that they deserved not to get something out of the game, but he'll be happy with how they equipped themselves to have kept it to 2 goals.
I totally agree with what you're saying, and also on the Courtney stuff as well. I am nitpicking here, but only because I do think she is really, really good and has the potential to, especially for us. She already is a very key player for Ireland, but to grow in importance in that role, and
she'll be busy enough. She'll be busy enough to be growing.
That's so true. We need her to be having these sort of performances against the likes of City, so that when it comes to France, England or Sweden, she's doing it the same. One thing I noticed when I was watching this game was Heather Payne cutting a bit of a frustrated figure. Everton would get the ball back and build up play, and they'd constantly lose it in the final third, and she'd be running up the wings shouting for the ball, but there just wasn't maybe the vision from some of her supporting players to pass her in the sort of balls that she needed, that we know she can take into the box. So that's one thing that I'll be interested to see. Does Everton work on it a little bit more to bring her into things? She's been really impressive this season. Emma Byrne said it as well whenever she was with the podcast. Considering it's her first professional season, she has been really, really impressive, and I would just love to see her getting those opportunities a little bit more, because I can understand after the role she played for Ireland for so long, how getting yourself into position and then not getting the service that you need would be something that she probably has nightmares about and is incredibly frustrating again. And I think she could be the sort of player that brings Everton from a kind of middle to low team into a little bit more of the higher echelons. I just think it was one of those games where even when Everton got possession, they'd spent so long out of possession that they're passing, it's just, it becomes really tiring when you're getting out past 4-1 or whatever City were doing to them, and your head goes a little bit. And it was testament to Heather that you kept making the runs, and in time the ball will come to her. But against City, I just don't think it was going to happen, to be honest. We'll give her and Courtney a bye ball. Do you think you mentioned the Gareth Taylor thing at the end of the Team of the Week there, but do you think it's a smart move from City? Do you think it should be a slightly shorter contract? Or has he kind of proven over this season that when he does have a fully operational team, which isn't technically true because he did lose Jill Ruard, who was a really important part of the team at the start of the season, but having basically a fully functioning team is actually the recipe that he needed to be consistently battling at the top echelons?
Yeah, I don't think you can argue against it now. And the contracts in the game, players and managers appear to be getting longer, and I don't think it's a bad thing, particularly coming to the managers, because we see so much turnover, and we see, even with Brighton and stuff at the bottom of the table, that it was just like, oh, see you later. And then there's a lot of swapping around of managers and stuff like that. So it's good to see a club committing to a manager in that way and fully backing him, because that gives him, the reassurance he needs to continue to build with this team. And he obviously has presented something to the board that has made them say, yes, this is a long-term plan, and we see ourselves getting back to the table, because that's the standards that City are holding themselves to. They want to be the top team, and they obviously believe that Taylor is the right person to do that. And at the moment, you can't argue against it, both in terms of how they're playing, their style of play, and their recruitment. And they're the kind of the three things you like value a manager on, and you see how the result. Well, it's a results game at the end of the day, but I think he's taken all of those boxes at the moment.
Definitely. And there was a lot of talk in the press release from him and from other of the bigwigs in City about this being a long-term plan and playing the City way, and him knowing what the City way is. So I think that definitely was something that was important to them. Turn to now the North London derby. Arsenal scraping past Spurs, you would say, in scoreline. Anyways, even though they had majority of the possession, they didn't really have in the first half. I think Spurs had more shots on target than they did, even though it was 65% possession for most of the game. From an Irish perspective, the interesting part is probably the role that Katie McCabe played. So in the lead up to the game, she was talking about playing on the right, and she said that she actually quite enjoys it, even though she would prefer on playing on the left, and that she takes each new position as like a new challenge. And for me, going into those games, I know I need to be 100% concentrated and 100% on it. I like the challenge of it. I like the trust I have in my teammates and my manager to switch up positions if I have to. And then Jonas Eidevall was speaking to the media just today, and he said he wanted to try it to see if he could unlock some things. What's great about Katie is that she always says no problem. Her mindset is all about whatever helps the team and the team needs, and I love that. I would consider playing her anywhere except maybe central defence. If I asked her to play there, it might be the first time she ever says no to, which is, I think he was messing about that, because knowing Katie, if we put her in goal, she would probably be like, yeah, no problem. No problem. What did you think about this game, and I suppose the role that McCabe's played with Arsenal this season, because it has flip-flopped around a little bit?
Yeah, well, it's understandable given that they have a player away with America. And I also really, really rate Steph Catley. And I think that she adds a lot to the team as well. So I would be looking to facilitate getting the two of them in the team. And Katie has the ability and the game intelligence to be able to play on the left or the right and link in with any players in front of her. So yeah, it's also maybe getting away from, they were doing an awful lot of crossing at the start of the year without much direction. Whereas when Katie's on her right foot, she'd be more inclined to play shorter passes and work the ball up. And, that adds to the patient approach, which they obviously needed against Spurs. Spurs didn't go kamikaze like they have done in some games. I think they have learned the games to do that. I know it's less crack, but it was one of those games that Arsenal were going to have to grind out. And they did it. They did just enough. It was frustrating at times. Credit Spurs for that again, though. To do that in a sold-out Emirates Stadium, again, I think that they really are an improving team. But then you just have the quality of someone like Little, who can pick out a cross from one edge of the box to the other. Mead got a great first touch and she was tackled and it landed to Russo, but they put themselves in that position just by having that vision and, being a bit cutting and keeping their patience and going for it. And yeah, I think they were deserving 1-0 winners. I don't think they deserve to win by much more, but they'll be happy with that.
Oh, certainly. It's the sort of game in the run-up to a title race, if you still want to say that Arsenal are in one of those. It's the sort of game that you need to be winning, especially with how hard it was to grind out, because they very easily could have not done that. And I also think that Spurs are starting to grow into those big event games, because the North London derby, whether it's been held at the Tottenham Stadium or at the Emirates, has attracted massive crowds over the last couple of years. there's a familiarity to it. I don't know would they feel the same if they were playing Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, but they've seemed to have been able to unlock something in their mind where those games are much more competitive than the, you know,
I think that's great though as well. Yeah,
that we've seen in the past where Arsenal absolutely hammer them.
No, it's great to see from Spurs that they're not overawed by an occasion like that as well. It didn't lead to a fantastic game of football. You know, it's not something we'll look back at the end of the season and say, God, that was a humdinger. I don't think I remember too much from the game and it was 2 days ago, you know, that kind of way. So it was one of those where it was all about the result and Arsenal got it.
Well, as many football/sporting managers often point out, they're not actually here to entertain us, they're here to win. So we just have to go along for the ride.
Tell that to Brighton and Bristol.
Well, Karen, what a perfect segue. Thank you so much for doing my job for me. Brighton, Bristol, 10 goals in total, 7 to Brighton, 3 to Bristol. This game was just chaotic on all levels, but kind of suited the way this season is going for both teams, I feel. If you were to say going into this that Brighton were going to put 7 goals up against Bristol, I don't think you would have been believed with their form. I mean, their goals for so far this season is 20 in total. So it's not like they have been banging them in left, right and centre. But it all started relatively chill and then it just exploded in those final 10 to 20 minutes. Bright side from an Irish perspective, Megan Connolly getting on the score sheet. But beyond that, not a great day out for Bristol.
No. It was like they got excited by the fact that they scored a goal. It was like every time someone scored, they went down the other end and conceded. Bristol, you know, they got overexcited when they did score a goal and then they literally just exposed themselves at the back. And Brighton took full advantage of it. There was some good goals in there. There was some bad goals in there, but a lot of it just boiled down to some very bad defending, which makes for a good watch, you know. As a defender, a defensively minded player, you're kind of looking at it through like your fingers and being like, oh my God. But entertaining. I don't know, can you say much more than that about the game other than that it was entertaining? Penalties, free kicks, all that crack, but two teams who you can fully understand why they're at the bottom of the table.
I imagine Lauren Smith, the Bristol manager, must have been quite frustrated watching her team unravel like that, because Bristol have put in some good defensive performances this year, and maybe
that's what they have to do. And it was maybe like, they thought they could go out and just win this game, and maybe they got a bit ahead of themselves in that regard. But yeah, Brighton had more quality, and Bristol didn't really account for that. They didn't set up for that, I don't think.
You would feel that this, we keep saying this, but this is the nail in their coffin in terms of that's a very difficult result to come back from when you've had one of your nearest rivals defeat you in that way. Their next opponent is Man United, who will also be smarting after that draw with West Ham at the weekend. And then they have Spurs, Arsenal, you know, it's Liverpool. I mean, no game's an easy game when you're in a position like Bristol, but that's definitely not an easy run in for them at all.
No, I think Brighton were the only team looking at the bottom of the table that Bristol might have thought they could claw back into the relegation battle with them, because ever since, you know, transfer window, I don't think any of us have thought that West Ham would be involved in it. Everton, I think we've seen enough from in the early stages of the season to think that they would be okay as well. So it really, for me, it was kind of Bristol looking at Brighton, and yeah, it was always going to be a tough battle for them. I think it's beyond their grasp now, but it was always going to be hard for them coming up, you know, against some of the teams and the resources that they have. I think you mentioned to Kathleen, you've enjoyed what they've brought to the WSL this year, but again, there's only so much you can do in your first year up, especially when with the resources that a lot of those teams ahead of them that you're talking about, they're big name teams.
I want the chaos, though, some 7-3 games, and also just the general attendance. I also don't want to see for the likes of Megan Connolly captaining the side to then go down.
I should just say it was a fantastic free kick as well by Megan, and her delivery is something that we just kind of take for granted in the Irish setup now, but there's a reason why we are prolific from set pieces. Your Louise Quinns and your Caitlin Hayes, they're not getting on those balls without delivery from Megan. So she's a very important player to us for that alone.
And it's probably even something that we don't highlight enough from corners as well. Like last week against Wales, her delivery was some of the better play that we had. And we didn't actually just have that many opportunities for set pieces, which is what we need to do against these top 3 teams, is set pieces all the way. And hopefully Megan and Katie or Rusha or whoever it is that ends up taking the free kick can get us a goal or two. Karen, have to touch on that result for Manchester United because it was looking like you were going to get to the very end after that 4th minute goal from Rachel Williams, but then up popped Vivian Asay, her 4th goal, I think, this season so far, in the 85th minute to dampen those hopes a little bit. It seems a little bit symptomatic of United's season so far.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by the result. Just on the performances, the way they have been lately. We're struggling a little bit. We want Rachel. I love Rachel Williams, but she's, our super sub, and we're in a position where we feel like we need to start her. And she was the biggest threat. I felt that we possessed throughout the game. West Ham improving team, but I never feel, even when Man United go ahead, I never feel huge amount of comfort in a 1-goal lead, because we're liable to leave ourselves a little bit exposed, and we haven't been putting teams to the sword. They're not as clinical as the teams that are ahead of them. And even Liverpool, sometimes you look at some of the results that they put past, and they're even a little bit more ruthless. And there's just something a little bit missing that makes you think that this is a team that could compete. I think the position that they're in, fighting for that spot with Liverpool, is a reflection on where they are. And West Ham are good for the draw as well. We've seen the improvements that they've made, and I would think that next season, if they can add a little bit more, even, that they would be up around where Man United are. I think anyway, but just based on what I've seen in the last few weeks.
I think so. I think they do have a potential, despite some of the more difficult games that they've had this season. Again, it's one of the frustrating things with the league, because it's so small, and because there's only 1 or 2 teams, or there's only 1 team coming up and 1 team going down. It doesn't leave a lot of room for growth in general, unless you already have a really, really strong established base. And I do think until the league extends itself a little bit more, that's going to continue to be the case, because I think if the likes of your West Ham, Everton, Aston Villa, like Liverpool and United have maybe managed it a little bit better, but all those teams could be actually really pushing those top 3 of Chelsea, City, Arsenal more continuously and more, I suppose, regularly, because and that's exactly what the league needs in terms of improving itself. Just a quick look at the other fixtures. We won't go into them too much. Liverpool, big win over Aston Villa, 4-1. And then, like we were talking in Team of the Week, Chelsea. What else is there to say about them? 4-0 win over Leicester City, who will be relatively okay with that, considering the fact that they are actually 10 points off the bottom of the table, which is a good position for them to be in at the moment.
I think Villa take the crown for the most inconsistent team this year. And
especially considering where we all thought they were going to start off.
Yeah, they just, every time I'm like, why are you not better? I don't really understand what's going on.
If anyone from Aston Villa is currently listening to the podcast and wants Karen to go into the dressing room and just be like, oh, what's going on here, guys? Why are you not better?
Yeah, they should be. And maybe it's a blip in the season, or this season is a blip, but you're looking at just teams that are just playing better than them. They can't seem to get any flow. And then they'll have moments of brilliance when they have Daly and Daly, and Nobbs might do something the odd game. But again, it's very inconsistent from Villa. And Liverpool, they're a team that are very adaptable to their opposition. I think that it's rare that you'd see Liverpool come up and against anyone and be tactically exposed. I think against the top teams, obviously there's a bit of a disparity in quality, but in terms of how they apply themselves in games and how they've matured over this season, I think they're well worthy of that fight for fourth spot.
And hopefully it's something that they continue to grow on to.
Yeah, and great to see Niamh Fahey, our Mount Rushmore representative, doing so well. And obviously, every time she picks up a knock, you get a bit concerned because we saw the value she brings to the Irish team, but the fact that she was back for Liverpool, big sigh of relief.
Massive sigh of relief. Especially when we look at the qualifiers that we have to go into, which I have to continually
honestly wrap her up in cotton wool till then.
Sorry, Liverpool, you're actually not allowed to play her for the rest of the season.
No, she's your captain and all, but she's ours.
Yeah, she's ours. We had her first. We have full claim over her. Karen, thank you very much. I hope you managed to get through the rest of the day with bits of laughter rather than tears as we let those results settle in on us. Just a reminder to anyone who hasn't established it in their heads throughout the entirety of this podcast, Ireland's Group C opponents, France, England, Sweden and ourselves. It's going to be a fun ride, guys. We're going to have a great time. Our COYGIG are going to be there all the way through to have a bit of a laugh with you about this, and hopefully we get some good results and some good days out. We will be back next week with our usual WSL podcast, but for now, thank you very much for listening. The COYGIG Pod on Off the Ball is sponsored by Cadbury, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. If you have any thoughts on today's show, or if you are one of the many people who hasn't yet got in contact with us about the draw today, I saw Aidan O'Riordan was in our mentions there a couple of minutes ago, so we're even getting government ministers who are interested in what's happening today with the draw. You can get us at the COYGIG Pod on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening.
The COYGIG Pod on Off the Ball in association with Cadbury, official snack partner of the Republic of Ireland women's national team.